Democracy, in its ideal form, promises governance by the people, for the people. However, history shows that political actors have often manipulated democratic language and institutions to consolidate power for a single class, party, or leader. From ancient Athens to modern states, the tension between democratic ideals and authoritarian practices has remained a persistent theme. This essay critically explores how the rhetoric of democracy can be, and has been, used to justify class dominance or autocratic control. It will examine historical examples, mechanisms of manipulation, and theoretical underpinnings that explain this paradoxical phenomenon. The theoretical framework, democracy and its vulnerabilities. Democracy rests on a few foundational principles: popular sovereignty, political equality, majority rule, and the protection of minority rights. However, these very principles can be weaponized. For instance, majority rule can be interpreted to mean the silencing of dissenting voices. The idea of the people is often abstract and malleable. Who speaks for them, who represents them, and how their will is interpreted becomes a crucial point of contestation. Political theorists such as Alexis de Tocqueville warned of the tyranny of the majority, where popular opinion suppresses minorities. More recently, political philosopher Sheldon Wolin introduced the concept of inverted totalitarianism, a system where democratic institutions remain but are controlled by economic elites or technocratic classes, creating the appearance of democracy without its substance. Historical examples of class dictatorship in democratic guise. 1. The French Revolution and the Jacobin regime. Initially, the French Revolution was a movement against aristocratic privilege and for democratic equality. Yet, during the Reign of Terror, 1793 to 1794, the Jacobin leadership claimed to speak for the general will while executing thousands of perceived enemies. The revolutionary rhetoric cloaked a centralized and repressive rule, justified by appeals to the needs of the people. Soviet Union under Lenin and Stalin. The Bolsheviks came to power in 1917 with slogans like peace, land, and bread, and all power to the Soviets. However, Lenin soon dissolved the Constituent Assembly, censored opposition, and replaced pluralistic socialism with one-party rule. Under Stalin, the dictatorship of the proletariat transformed into the dictatorship of the party bureaucracy, with purges, show trials, and gulags. All of this was justified in the name of protecting the revolution and securing a classless future. Number 3. Nazi Germany's democratic entry. Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party gained power through democratic elections and legal procedures. Once in power, the Nazis used the Reichstag fire and the Enabling Act to suspend democratic institutions, all under the pretext of defending the nation and the people's will. The concept of Volksgemeinschaft, people's community, was used to exclude Jews, communists, and others from the people, enabling a totalitarian state in democratic dress. 4. Modern electoral autocracies. In contemporary times, several governments maintain electoral processes while undermining democracy from within. In countries like Hungary under Viktor Orban or Russia under Vladimir Putin, leaders use democratic legitimacy to entrench one-party dominance, weaken the judiciary, control the media, and curtail civil liberties. Elections are held, but the playing field is not equal, and dissent is stifled, resulting in what scholars call illiberal democracy. 3. Mechanisms of manipulating democracy for class or elite domination. 1. Control of media and narrative. Media plays a critical role in shaping public opinion and constructing the image of legitimacy. States or elite classes can monopolize media channels, censor dissent, and spread propaganda. By doing so, they manufacture consent and create a pseudo-democratic environment where citizens believe they are free, while unknowingly supporting a hegemonic structure. Number 2. Populism and the construction of the people. Populist leaders often construct a binary between the pure people and the corrupt elite, but this can be reversed. Once in power, populists reframe themselves as the only legitimate voice of the people, delegitimizing all opposition as enemies of the people. This tactic concentrates power in the hands of one leader or party while retaining democratic language. 3. Weakening of institutions. A strong democracy depends on checks and balances. Authoritarian regimes disguised as democracies often erode these institutions. They pack the courts, control electoral commissions, or amend constitutions to extend term limits. These actions are often justified as reforms for efficiency or national interest, yet they centralize authority in undemocratic ways. Surveillance and repression in the name of security. In the post 9/11 world, many democracies expanded surveillance and policing powers. While some measures were arguably necessary, they also opened the door to permanent states of exception. Laws passed for national security can be turned against political activists, minority groups, or journalists. All this occurs under the democratic pretext of maintaining order and safety. Number 5, economic inequality and oligarchy. In capitalist democracies, rising economic inequality has led to what some call plutocracy, rule by the wealthy. Campaign financing, lobbying, and control over economic resources allow a small elite to disproportionately influence policy. While elections continue, real power may lie with corporate donors and billionaire interest groups, undermining the democratic principle of political equality. IV. Why this works. The role of mass psychology and ideology. People often accept undemocratic rule if it is framed as protecting national unity, social stability, or cultural values. Political theorist Antonio Gramsci's concept of hegemony explains this. Ruling classes maintain control not just through coercion, but through ideological dominance, making their interests appear universal. Democracy, when used as a rhetorical shield, can serve as a powerful instrument of this hegemony. Moreover, mass psychology plays a role. In times of crisis, economic downturns, wars, pandemics, people are more willing to trade freedom for security. Charismatic leaders exploit this vulnerability by positioning themselves as saviors of the nation. The gradual erosion of democratic norms can go unnoticed until it is too late. Resistance and the renewal of democratic ideals. Despite these manipulations, resistance is always possible. Civil society, independent media, whistleblowers, and grassroots movements play a critical role in exposing authoritarian tendencies. International organizations and transnational solidarity can also hold governments accountable. Education in critical thinking and civic responsibility is perhaps the strongest long-term defense against the authoritarian appropriation of democracy. The renewal of democracy requires constant vigilance, transparency, and an engaged citizenry. Democracy is not a static system, but a living process, vulnerable to corruption, but also capable of reform. Conclusion. The central irony of modern political life is that some of the most authoritarian regimes have risen and survived through democratic means. The invocation of the people, majority rule, or national interest has often served as a cloak for class dictatorship, elite domination, or autocratic rule. As history demonstrates, the form of democracy can be retained even as its substance is hollowed out. The challenge for citizens, scholars, and activists is to distinguish between genuine democracy and its simulacra, to recognize when the language of freedom masks the reality of control.